A couple of minutes left in the webinar portion. I'm going to take the chair's privilege here and ask one question for each of you, and then ask you to each come up in sequence to answer. And Patricia, why don't you stay here since you're already here, and you can start, give the other two a chance to think about it. I'm going to do what journalists do, which is oversimplify and probably outrage the scientific panelists. But ask you, since you've been focused on this work now for a decade, what each of you thinks the most important enduring myth of 9/11 mental health may be? And what is the single most important takeaway from your own research and advocacy over the last 10 years? Maybe most important myth and most important thing you've learned, most important takeaway. One line of each.
Okay, so the most important myth, I believe, is that there's one way to intervene after disasters. There is not. And the most important takeaway is that there needs to be a broad way to intervene with many different self-care approaches.
Roxy Silver.
Well, I'm going to present what I consider to be a myth, but I can say it's a controversial position, which is that I think it's a myth to assume that people need to be directly impacted by an event like 9/11 to lead to the potential for severe post-traumatic stress symptomatology. We saw in our own research that individuals who knew nobody who died that day, who were merely learning about the attacks by witnessing them live on television, showed psychological effects that mimicked what was seen amongst direct survivors. So the takeaway message for me is, do not assume that if a person was not physically present, do not assume if the person knew nobody who died in an event like 9/11. One should not assume that their symptoms are not real, that they're not potentially distressing. I think that I've had many people over the last decade write me to thank me for not trivializing the feelings that they had after 9/11, even though they lived in Kansas, Oklahoma, California.
Okay. No myths, no insights. All right. Well, with that, I want to thank all of the people who sent in questions, including those whose questions we did not get to. They're important ones, and some of them may inform the conversation that we have here yet to come. I want to thank everyone here in the audience, and in particular thank our video and audio and technical support team who have made this webinar a physical reality.